Hello, OOTP. This is Twins34, and today I am actually going to do a different type of video. Today I am actually going to do my take on how I think that the development sliders work within OOTP. So we will switch over to 25 here, and I am in just a random game. It is a fictional game. I have the scouting off so that I can see everything that's going on with the game. When I actually ran probably about 300 years worth of data using a save file and using the same players over and over again, and pretty much setting their strategy to the extreme, either totally full, totally empty, just to see what the sliders would do to them. And to be honest, it really wasn't what I thought would happen. It was completely the opposite. So let's go into a picture. So I got Matt Andrews here. He's a rookie. Pretty much all these players are. I just created this, I believe, in OOTP 24 near the end of the cycle. And I really haven't played it much, as I was playing other things and beta testing a lot of stuff. So I really haven't gotten much into my games, unfortunately. But in doing all of that, I have found out that with these development sliders, you can do quite a bit with them, and you will not see any huge drop offs. You also won't see any huge gains either. Um, when I tested pitchers, I took their stamina and knocked it all the way down to zero. And then I would take those points and throw them into stuff that needed to be developed. And my data showed that sometimes stamina went down 10 points. I think the max was 15 I seen. But stamina also improved, even with it being down here like this. Now, I can't answer what caused that, but it happened numerous times. So, I can't say one way or another if taking a slider all the way down to zero actually hurts your player or not. My data showed that I ran around 300 years worth of data. I actually took 5 pitchers, put them at the age of 18, set their contracts for 15 years, and then set, extensions on them as well, just so that they would not leave the team. And I would sim I want to say 20 years. So I had the players locked up in contracts for 15 years plus, I think, like another 10 years extended. Did that in the editor. You can just go down to here and set this for 15, and then go down here and set this for 10. And that's what I ended up doing so that they would not leave my team. And I did not have the data that said that these sliders would, you know, make a stat drop drastically. So I started just setting my development to where if a pitcher had 75, 80 stamina, I would drop it all the way down to 0. I really would not care. Because for the data that I seen, your stamina didn't go from a 75 to a 30 in the 30 years that I simmed. I think the worst I seen is a couple players drop down to 65 to 55. And for a starter, that's still fine. That isn't, destroying a starter. They're not going to, pitch 120 pitches anymore. But they're still going to be a very serviceable starter. So, if stamina is at 75, I drop it all the way down to 0. And then I would take it and look at my other pitches. Or if I had to put points into control or home run allowed, then I would put stuff into them. Like right now, control, it could use a little bump. So I'll put it up like 10 points. And then my pitches, I got 4 of them. So do I focus on my best pitches and drop my changeup down a little bit? I might drop it down a quarter. And then I'd, throw the rest into slider and the curveball, the fastball. Drop just a little bit in movement because my movement could probably use a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what's causing the PBAB here to be 53, 55. That's a little weird. Not sure. But, I'll throw a little bit in there. And then if I feel like, yeah, this looks good, then I might just put a little bit back in stamina. And then I'd call this player fine. I'm focusing on the control that needs to be boosted up and focusing on his 3 top pitches. And then I always click this prevent AI from adjusting because I have come to a player where it's already been changed. And I'm not sure if that just happens naturally when the players are created or what causes that. But most of these guys, I haven't touched any of them in this league. But as you see, all the sliders are different. Like with this guy, I definitely would not have points into his fastball. His fastball's already a 90-90. I might try to throw some in stamina because stamina will improve by having the slider up. It just won't drop off the face of the earth by having it turned all the way down. But it will slightly improve stamina I mean, you won't go from 35 to 70, but you will see he might make it up to a 50 in probably 5, 6, 7 years. Now, through the dev lab, this guy might be able to become a starting pitcher, but with these sliders, that's not going to happen. But like for Mickey Weaver, I probably would drop down his fastball to about half, bring his changeup down about a quarter or so. Quarter's probably about right there. And then drop the rest into his stamina. Just, bring it up as far as I possibly can. Control, put at normal. Keep movement about normal. And just leave him at this. See if that stamina comes up a little bit. And throw him into the dev lab to learn a new pitch. This guy could become a starting pitcher. I mean, he's only 20 years old. Has 35 stamina. Has an amazing fastball. A good changeup. If you get him another pitch learned, this guy could turn into a good starting pitcher. Maybe near the bottom of your rotation just because he doesn't have the stamina. But, he has a chance. The one thing I never played around with, though, was two-way players. I do have one. I just have to remember, I think it's Brent Clark. Yes. He can play center field, and he's also a starting pitcher. Has a really good fastball. Not a lot of stamina. Has a good cutter, so I might take points out of cutter and fastball to help out in his stamina a little bit. But he's already maxed out in everything else. And over when I switch him to center field, he does have a little room and power to improve on and a little bit in gap. But definitely in his development over here, and he does have two different types of development. Since his running is almost completely maxed out, I'm dropping his running. I have no reason to keep points in running. So I put some points into I and then in power. I'm going to take some out of defense. I mean, this does help defense. That I did see in my tests. I set a whole bunch of people to their defense maxed just to see it would do. And it does help their position ratings. Now, I'm not talking about their defensive ratings. I'm talking about their arm and their range and their error. This does help bring that up a little bit. Not as much as the dev lab, but over the time, this does help. But we're going to bring home runs up so that it gets focused on. So gap, home runs, and I are being worked on. And that's how I would set him. He gets totally different sliders for his pitching, but since his pitching is already completely maxed, the only thing I would probably do is bring down movement, bring down control, and put stuff in the stamina since he has a low stamina. And then just, drop things back in. And do probably something like that. This isn't going to hurt your pitches having him down like that, but this should improve his stamina over time. So let's see if I can find a batter that needs development. We got not a lot of anything here. So let's pick on Colin Sullivan here. We'll go into the editor and we'll go into his batting ratings. And we'll just drop these down a bit. Let's go 300, 300. We'll leave avoid K's alone. His gap's really low, so we'll leave that alone. We'll drop this down 379 and 391, just so now that we actually have something to play with. We got Babbitt to throw stuff into. We can throw some in power. I am going to put up his speed a little bit just because that gives a little bit more options for you to decide. So we'll put it up to 150 and put this up to 150 so we have running to play around with as well. So he is a 48.75. He has a lot to develop, so we'll bring down his sliders to pretty much normal so we can figure out where things are. His running speed and stealing speed, they're both pretty good, so we can probably bring his running down about half. That way, we're not taking everything out of it, but we are using that higher run to help out. Now his eye is also almost maxed. And like it already is, we're going to put eye about the same. So we need to put points into Babbitt and home run power. We can also, if we need to, we can take points out of avoid Ks. But we'll just kind of see where we're at before we touch that. We're just going to bring up Babbitt quite a bit. And then we'll bring up home run power. And honestly, that's not looking bad, but I do want to put some into gap. I don't want to totally have gap not being developed. So go like that, and then I'll put some more back into defense. Now, since this isn't an 80 or this isn't an 80, that's why I'm not dropping it all the way down. I ain't looking to develop them, but I'm also not looking to see much of a regression in them. And putting these at 0, you might see a little regression, so putting them at half, I don't see much of an issue. Now, if you have TCR turned up to 200, most of this stuff could just be totally wiped out by that. You might think that, oh, I put my running all the way down to 0, and then you had a TCR hit, and this guy's running went from being an 80 to all of a sudden being a 50. So That would be a TCR hit. You will not see that happen because of sliders. With me, I usually set my TCR to 75 to 100 because I see enough issues for when people get hurt, and because of injuries, they will, lose ratings. I've had it happen in my online leagues. I've had it happen in my fictional leagues. I've had it happen in my historical leagues. Injuries can cause a toll, and I don't need talent randomness to pop up and say, hey, your 22-year-old pitcher that was an 80-80 is now a 50-50. Of course, that's being quite drastic, as I don't think I've ever seen a horrible drop like that before. But I really don't want that in my games. There's enough randomness in the games the way it is. So I keep TCR to pretty much normal or a little bit under. That also means your dev lab means a lot more, and these sliders mean a lot more if your TCR isn't either boosting the heck out of your player or nerfing them on you. So, since we got him set up and we focused on his power, we focused on his Babbitt, and we kept a little bit in defense just to keep that going. I mean, I could drop down a little bit in both of those and bump up his defense a little bit more, but I'd probably run this guy like this for quite a few years until something maxed out, and then I'd slowly start, kind of raising everything up to where it gets close to even again. So if we go through, let's go down to the next guy here, like this guy. I would take everything out of running right here. He's a 90-90. There is no reason that I should have any points into that. He needs a little bit of work and power. So, since I took that, I'm going to throw it into power. And I is low, but, I bring that back up a little bit. But I'd probably play this player right here. And I keep forgetting to click on that, but try to remember to click on prevent AI from adjusting this stuff. Let's go down to the next guy. He has absolutely no running speed, so yeah, I would not have anything in running whatsoever. He needs a little boost in gap, so let's just put I at normal. Bring gap up a little bit. He doesn't need anything in Babbitt, so I can bring Babbitt down. Bring avoid K's down. His power isn't worth anything, so we can bring that down. Bring his eye up a little bit. And then kind of just work these back up until I run out of points. And I'd probably run him like that. I don't see a reason to have anything in running because the guy can't run. If I want to make him run, I'd rather do it in the dev lab than trying to see if he'll develop running. So, well, like once again, it's all randomized. So I'm guessing because I imported and it's a new feature as players were brought in, it automatically set them for me. But that's my take on sliders. What people have said and that people have read, like Reddit. I mean, there's talk about this on a daily basis, and it's been probably knocked to death on the forums. And there is a breakdown on what Development Focus does. And I kind of will go over that a little bit just to show what it says on the forums. So, if you look at the forums here, it says players throughout the years will have routines and standard things they do to practice, get better, and maintain themselves. They will work with coaches who can guide them and help them with these exercises on a daily basis. Before this version of OOTP, this was generally captured in the coaching influence on standard player development. However, players do not have the same routines. The power hitting DH is not going to get a coach to hit him ground balls for hours. He's going to have a coach helping him in the cage instead. So they're just trying to show that between the older versions and the newer versions, that they realize that not every player is the same and that the focus on coaches just wasn't the same. I mean, when you went out and hired coaches, you had power coaches, you had contact coaches, and they don't work the same for different batters. A contact coach isn't going to be great for a power batter. So that's why they brought these development sliders in. So for a quick overview, it's not related to Development Lab. Since development focus builds off the existing development system, so it's already working off the development engine. It is always there and influences the players at all times. So just like the development system, this is just giving you kind of control over the development engine. To adjust a slider, you need to take out ratings from a different slider. We went over that. When all sliders are at the middle state, this is just the same as having the old coaching influence of past games. When you give more to a rating, not only will it improve development, which includes current ratings as well as talent increases, but it also influences how well a player has already maxed out. His current ratings will maintain it and even fight off the aging curve as he gets older. So when you have 20-year-old players, there's really not much of a point to trying to hold what you already have. If you're at a 90 on strikeouts, use the sliders in other places to help develop your player. Now, when they get older and they're getting close to their 30s, yeah, you probably want to move the sliders a little bit more back to neutral. Now, when it comes to running and somebody getting older, I would still take my running and put it into other aspects to try to hold on to power and their Babbitt and their avoid Ks over trying to make sure they're still fast. All right, to continue, it says, however, since you need to take time from somewhere, the aspects of his game that a player neglects will suffer opposite to the above. Now, like I said in my tests, I did not see a huge regression. It was minor, and like I said, with stamina, which really confused me. I had pitchers get better in stamina, and I had pitchers get worse in stamina by having the stamina slider all the way down to zero. Now, if that's not how this is supposed to work, I don't know. But I just know that with all the data I've seen, yes, some players they lost about 20 points of stamina, but some players gained like 20 points of stamina. From that, I really don't know what to really believe because my data doesn't really go along with what this says. I've just played the sliders the way I've been playing them, and I've been having pretty good results with it. In the end, for what I have played around with inside of OOTP, when they're young, take from the stuff that they already have and give to the stuff that they need to develop. If they have good speed and good running abilities, take away from their running. If they need work in their home runs or their Babbitt, pump it into their home runs and Babbitt. And I guess when they get older, try to bring this all back to the middle. Like when they're older, there's not going to be much of trying to keep the defense. I mean, you can keep points into it, but bring their power up a little bit, bring their Babbitt up a little bit, just to help that aging curve. And also remember that the way you set up your league, that can also affect this. Like if you go into the settings here and you change these up, I mean, that's going to affect how you develop as well. And how you age and everything else. So also keep that in mind if you do play around with these numbers. It is going to give you a different outcome when it comes to using the sliders. So I guess, this might confuse a lot of people, or some of you might understand this more from how I've explained it. That your ratings are not going to drop off the board if you lower something all the way down. It's not going to help it get better, but the game engine is still working in the background as well. So even though I had my stamina all the way down, the dev engine is still doing its thing. So a very good chance that I was just getting positive influence from the dev engine. Take what I said with a grain of salt. I do have the data that does back up what I have said, that being at zero isn't going to drop anything off, and putting everything to max isn't going to make anything great. They do help with development. That I can 100% positively say does happen. If you have like 40-60 Babbitt, having points into your slider on Babbitt, you will see an increase over the year in your Babbitt. It won't be from 30 to 60 in 1 year, but over a 2 to 3 year period, you will max your Babbitt. Just depends on how many points you decide to put in Babbitt. If you max it to 100%, in about a year and a half, 2 years, that 30-60 Babbitt will be a 60-60 Babbitt, or depending on how the dev engine has advanced your player or regressed your player, having those points in Babbitt will help develop your player. But to do an overview and wrap things up, when it comes to pitchers, yes, if they have high stamina, use that stamina to help develop your player. Your stamina is not going to go from a 75 to a 30 just because you don't have anything in your stamina slider. Throw down your stamina a bit, put it in stuff that needs to be developed. Because you're not going to see your stamina go from 80 to 0 within a time of a year. It's just not going to happen. When it comes to fielders, if they have really good running or really crappy running, use that running to help your other ratings. There is absolutely no reason for you to try to develop running in a player that's already maxed out. So I guess from here, I'll leave this up to you if you want to take my advice. But I'm just explaining what I've done, how much I've tested, and I've had really good results from it. I don't think I'm steering anybody wrong by giving you this advice. But do take it with a grain of salt. They don't give us a lot of details on this. They give us the bare minimum of knowledge. And they leave it up to us to grab the game and play it or deep dive it to figure out how all this stuff actually affects everything. So, if you could, please like and subscribe. I do have a lot of other videos for OOTP dealing with installing mods and even helping out, teaching you, if you're in an online league, how to use a spreadsheet with Excel or Google Docs to take from OOTP and put it into a document to take a draft and put it over into Stats Plus. I also stream on Twitch, and you can find me there under twins_34. And I'm going to call this one good. And y'all have a great day. Thank you for watching. And I will talk to you guys later.